You know, they say wrestling is fake, but sometimes things get a little too real. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 wrestling controversies. For this list, we've selected the most shocking and unbelievable real-life moments and controversies to take place in the world of professional wrestling. Number 10. Sting vs. Jeff Hardy. At TNA's Victory Road pay-per-view in 2011, two icons, Sting and Jeff Hardy, were set to fight. The problem? Jeff Hardy was looking at drug charges, and after disappearing for a few hours before the fight, showed up allegedly so messed up on something he could hardly stand, let alone fight, in his long-awaited match with Sting. What followed was one of the most uncomfortable moments in wrestling, as Hardy, visibly intoxicated, staggered into the ring. Sting was clearly upset, but not as upset as the fans, who booed loudly as the match ended in about a minute and a half. Number 9. Muhammad Hassan. Mark Kopani, aka Muhammad Hassan, was a talented wrestler who portrayed a man of Arab descent during his brief tenure in the WWE in the mid-2000s. At the time, fear and xenophobia following the events of 9/11 was still high, so Hassan's debut was met with heat from mainstream media. Things escalated exponentially when, at a SmackDown taped in July 4th, 2005, Hassan knelt down to pray and let his masked henchmen take on The Undertaker. 3 days later, the London subway bombing terrorist attacks made this entire storyline seem in even worse taste, and Hassan's character was ultimately scrapped. Ironically, he was actually Italian-American. Number 8. The Matt Hardy, Edge and Lita love triangle. In the early 2000s, Matt Hardy and Lita were dating, both on-screen and IRL. However, mid-decade, an affair between Edge and Lita began, and things got heated backstage. The story made its way into the ring, and Matt Hardy was fired, wrestling independently for a while before being brought back to the WWE to engage in a feud with Edge over Lita. Things culminated in a brutal cage match at Unforgiven 2005, where Matt Hardy finally got his revenge. With their real-life animosities, it's a wonder the two didn't murder each other in the ring. Number 7. Steroid Trial. Professional wrestling and pro sports in general have always been a hotbed of steroid scandal. But things initially came to a head for the WWE in the early 90s, when Vince McMahon was indicted in federal court due to a series of allegations concerning the distribution of steroids among wrestlers. The prosecutor had a star witness, Hulk Hogan, but at the last minute the Hulkster flip-flopped and stated that Vince had never provided him with drugs. Since 1994, the WWE has been under close scrutiny concerning steroids, but unfortunately, that hasn't stopped several tragedies from occurring. Number 6. Mass Transit Incident. In an ECW house show in 1996, Axel Rotten and New Jack were supposed to square off in a tag team match. When Axel no-showed, a massive 350-pound man going by the name of Mass Transit, claiming to be of age and to have been professionally trained as a wrestler, offered to substitute. Turns out he was only 17, and New Jack beat the living hell out of him with a toaster and crutches before blading him in the middle of the ring and prompting paramedics to arrive. Mass Transit's family eventually tried to sue ECW, unsuccessfully. Number 5. CM Punk walks out on the WWE. It began with CM Punk's controversial pipe bomb. Punk cut an extremely realistic promo on the microphone that blurred the lines between reality and fiction. That promo, combined with one of the longest championship runs ever, turned Punk into a true star. Then, something changed. In early 2014, he packed his bags and left the WWE with no reasons given and no public address. Punk later recorded a podcast with Colt Cabana, exposing some of WWE's practices he deemed unprofessional and unacceptable, especially in regards to medical treatment and the excessive use of Z-Packs. Things only got worse between Punk and the company, with WWE sending Punk his notice on his wedding day and the two parties eventually meeting in court. Number 4. Owen Hart's death. It was supposed to be a standard stunt, but what occurred that night in 1999 was one of the worst tragedies in the history of wrestling. At the time, Owen was playing the role of the Blue Blazer, a goofy superhero-style character. For his theatrical entrance, Hart was going to be lowered from the rafters on a harness to a safe level, at which point he'd get tangled up in the wires, release himself, and fall ungracefully into the ring. Unfortunately, something went wrong partway through his descent, and Owen came crashing down over 50 feet. He died not long after. Perhaps the most controversial aspect about this tragedy was the fact that the WWE decided to continue the event that night. Number 3. The Saudi Arabia Tours. You may have heard about this one from your favorite news outlets because it's big and it's happening right now. In 2018, WWE began its 10-year deal with the Saudi General Sports Authority to air live shows from the country. The events were controversial enough already, with the outright refusal to allow women to compete due to limited women's rights in the country, and many have also accused the shows of being thinly veiled propaganda. But once the news broke out about Jamal Khashoggi's murder by Saudi agents, WWE found themselves in the hot seat. Many called for the company to tear up their agreement and cancel their upcoming events, but WWE went on business as usual. Many of the WWE's top talents, including Daniel Bryan, John Cena, and Kevin Owens, have since refused to work at these shows, and it's not hard to see why. Number 2. Montreal Screwjob. This one's full of he said, but here goes. Bret Hart, one of the most popular men in WWE at the time, was feeling underappreciated by his company and boss man Vince McMahon, so he chose to jump ship for WCW in 1997. McMahon wanted Bret to forfeit the championship before leaving, but Hart was allegedly unwilling to drop the title to one of his biggest real-life and on-screen rivals. As a result, a non-scripted ending was executed, with Shawn Michaels putting Bret Hart in his own signature submission, the sharpshooter, and the referee calling for the bell. The relationship between Bret Hart and the WWE was tenuous for years because of this screw job, but they've kind of made up these days. Not quite at the end yet, almost there though. Just be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Alright, back to business. Number 1. The Death of Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit was one of the most technically proficient wrestlers ever. His illustrious career culminated in a feel-good championship win at WrestleMania 20. But when Chris Benoit no-showed an event in June 2007, his friends knew something was amiss. By the time police eventually entered the Benoit home, they found the wrestling star, his wife, and 7-year-old son dead from an apparent double murder-suicide at Benoit's hands. Though the motive for this tragedy died with Benoit, theories including steroid abuse and brain damage have been suggested. Though it led to a shockwave of changes in the company's drug policies, this remains the most tragic controversy in the WWE's history. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.